Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. In our last tutorial, I showed you how to draft this beautiful baby boo gown. In today's tutorial, I'll be showing you how to join the pieces of fabric together. So guys, unfortunately for me, I lost some of the clips, the cutting clips of the tutorial, but the sewing tutorial has everything intact, and I'll be redirecting you on how to cut from your pattern paper, transfer the pattern paper to your fabric, right? So if you have no idea on how to place your pattern paper on your fabric, you could refer to our old videos in order to understand what's going on. Okay guys, so my recreation is on the right while my inspiration is on the left. If this is your first time coming to my channel, please like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel. So unlike the other patterns that we have to place, you have to fold your fabric into two. In this tutorial, we are not folding our pattern into two because we used an open pattern method because it's an asymmetric dress, right? So what I did was to leave my fabric. I ironed edge to my fabric and on my lining, and then I left my fabric like that flat. Don't fold it into two equal parts, right? And then I went ahead to place my pattern paper on my fabric, and then I added half an inch round the fabric, right? I added half an inch round the fabric, and then on my side front and my side back is when I add my allowance, how much I want it, how many inches I want it to be. So I added 1.5 inch, as you can see on the fabric, but at the end of the day I had 1 inch allowance, right, remaining at the side front and the side back. So all you can do is just watch what I did over there. 1/2 inch round my pattern paper, and then 1.5 inch on the side front and the side back. The padding, right, the padding that I added from my underbust to the bust point, all I did was to measure that and then place that on my fabric, place my pattern paper on my wording, right? So I'll be recreating how to pat your bust point in a different tutorial because I lost the clip I wanted to use to explain. Okay guys, so I have all my fabrics, right? This is the front part of my fabric. I have 3 pieces because they have not been cut on fold. I repeat, do not cut your fabric on a fold. And as you can see, you'll notice that I notched some points, right? Those are the important points that I notched. I'll make sure that for my side front and my center front, they are aligning with each other, right? So guys, what I did was that I decided to iron my wording. If you know how to cut your wording already, what I did with my wording was to I added it on the lining instead of the main fabric, right? So I went ahead to join my fabric just the way you can see on the pin. I make sure you're joining by the 0.5 you added, or you could add 0.75 inches depending on you, but for me I used 0.5. So what I did was just to place my fabric just the way you can see it over there. Make sure the notches are aligning with each other, and then I went to my sewing machine. Do what you're doing for your lining, make sure you do the same thing for your fabric, right? Yeah, so that's what I did. As you can see, that's my wording over there. Sorry about the inconvenience guys. I'll be recreating a video on how to patch your bustier, right? So over here we are just doing padding, so I'll be recreating a video on how to do that. So what I did was just align the notches just the way I did on my fabric. I aligned the notches on my lining and on the fabric, and then I'll go to my sewing machine and go ahead to join all the pieces together, right, just like you can see over there. So after joining, I had what you can see over here, right? So the reason for padding your bust part is just to add firmness to your bust, right? So after joining, what I went ahead to do is to iron, right? I'll be ironing the front lining and my front part, right? I'll iron everything, but before ironing, make sure you notch the most important parts. Can you see what I'm doing over there? After notching, what I went ahead to do is to iron, right? And make sure when you're ironing, use your tailoring ham, right? Your, I don't know how you call it in your area, but I call it the tailoring ham. So I went ahead to iron that. You see the way I'm doing it? Yeah, just iron the way I'm doing over there, and then that's my tailoring hem under my bust point where I padded. I'm opening that up. Even where you have not padded on your main fabric, make sure you use your tailor's hem over there, right? Can you see the firmness on my bust point from my under bust to my bust point? So guys, I'll be recreating a video on the padding, right, and show you how to pad your bustier, okay? And then I went ahead to iron the same thing on my main fabric, right? Okay guys, can you see the loops at the back of my gown, right? And I'm going to be showing you how I got it right now. So what I did was measure 1,5, sorry, right, for the width, and then for the length you measure as long as you want. How many loops will you need? It depends on how many loops you're going to need, right? So I measured 1,5 for the width, and I'm going to join it right the way I did, just the way you can see me do here. I'll take you to the sewing machine to show you how I made the loops, okay? And then over here I have my back, right? So for the lining part, you just join that, right? You just join the lining part just basically the way you join the front part. But for the main fabric, you're going to place your loops over there. So I was arranging my fabric here to make sure it's okay. So for the loops, right, I place, you see what I'm doing right there. So I make sure to fold my loops just the way you can see me do. And then I went ahead to sew that. I had a lot of it. The fabric was a lot. And then after that, what I went ahead to do, the length of my loop is 3 inches. You can measure 2 inches or however you want it, right, depending on you. But for me, the length I measured 3 inches, right? So after joining that, what I did over here on my main fabric was that I started by measuring 0,5 from the starting point, and then, or you can measure 1 inch depending on you, right? And then I measured 1.5 inches, right, intervals. I used 1.5, and then I placed my loops. And then you can see over there, right, there's an effect that it looks like a gown, a top and a skirt, right? But it's not that, it's a gown. So I'll be showing you how I made that happen, okay? So what I did first, right, you need to reduce your lining part. Can you see what I did? I reduced my lining by 2 inches for both the front and the back, and then I'll take that 2 inches that I came down by, and then I'll add that on the main fabric. What you can do is that while cutting on your pattern paper, you can do that, okay? So you can do that on your pattern paper. So what I did was use that pattern I used to cut out the lining part, and then I added 0,5 inch on both sides, right? 0,5 inch on both sides, and then I went ahead to join that on my main fabric. Guys, if you don't understand what I did, just rewatch and then you'll understand. Can you see what I did over there? After joining, I had that over there. That's the front and this is the back, and then it will give me my 2 inches. Make sure to add your allowance so that when you join them, you don't have a shortage at the end of the day. So after joining this is what I'll do. So after joining that, my upper part was completed. So what I did next was to place my lining fabric on my main fabric. But guys, at this point, right, you need to place your sleeve right over here where my arrow is pointing. You place your sleeve there, and then you pleat that before you go ahead to join that on your sewing machine. I did that later on, but you can't do that later on. What you do is place your sleeve on your armhole, and then you pleat that, okay? So pleat that first before you attach your lining to your main fabric to give you a neat finishing, okay? So after joining that, so over the arrow there is where your sleeve is supposed to do. After doing that, I had both the front and the back part, so I went straight to the down part, okay? So guys, pay attention to what I'm going to be doing. You can run a stitch and create gathers, but for me, I went ahead to pleat mine on my main fabric. So what I did was take my main fabric, the right sides facing the right side, and then I attach it to the main fabric on my, not the lining. I attached that and I pleated that, and then after pleating that, I came back. This is what you can see over here, right? Okay, so it's already giving us that effect that we want. And then what I went ahead to do is to right sides facing each other, right, just the way I did there, the lining and the main fabric right sides facing each other, and then I joined that on top of the pleat that I had made, okay? so as to give it a neat finishing. And then at the end of the day, this is what I had. Can you see that? Yeah, it's giving me that effect that will look like you are wearing a skirt and a top, but it's actually not a skirt and a top. So to close the open part, right, the open part must be there, okay, so that it gives you room for everything. So to close that open part, what I went ahead to do is to send my hand inside from one part of the other part, right. I went ahead to send my hand in on one part and then close the other part, just like you can see me demonstrate over there. And then after that, I went ahead to close the other part. And what I did for the back part is the same thing I did for the front part, right. So after that, I had what you can see the neat finishing on the wrong and the right sides over there. Okay guys, you can actually use an inseam method to sew this gown if you know how to do that, okay, but I think I'll make a separate video on how to use an inseam method to make this outfit, okay. So what I did next was to measure and then join the sides together, right, and then I added invisible zipper on the other part of the gown, and then we were done with our gown. Can you see over there? That's my inseam, that's my invisible zip on the side over there. Guys, sorry for losing most of the clips of this video. I just hope you understand, and if there's anything you don't understand, just ask in the comment section and I'll be there to answer all your questions. Thanks for watching and see you in my next video. Bye.